Meta magics have a lot of secret effects in Baldur's Gate 3, so in this video I'll be ranking all of them on a tier list from best to worst. For example, did you know that Subtle Spell, which lets you cast while silence, also adds a stealth tag to your spell, so you can cast somewhat similar to greater invisibility. And the Extended Spell will actually proc off Booming Blade and can give you 2 turns of the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel and 4 turns of Arcane Acuity with the Battle Mage's Power Gloves. In addition, it also works with the Hat of Fire Acuity and many others. There's even an item which will give you a sorcery meta magic here with the Seeking Spell. We'll first start with Extended Spell because I think this is possibly the most crazy thing in Baldur's Gate 3. The reason that it's so powerful is it's going to double conditions, summons, and surfaces. This makes things like Ice Storm last for 4 turns with Ice Surfaces for a single sorcery point, which is pretty great if you like crowd control. However, it turns Hypnotic Pattern back into the powerful spell that it is in Tabletop. Originally, this has a 10-turn duration, but it had to be nerfed in Baldur's Gate 3 because of how crazy this is. This turns it back to 4 turns, and the area of effect is so large with this. So that's what makes this spell so powerful, is it basically is going to shut down anyone that gets hit by it. So yeah, that's very powerful. It can turn Globe of Invulnerability into a win button. It just makes the game really easy because Globe of Invulnerability will now last for 6 turns for a single sorcery point. It's incredible. There's also things like Crown of Madness turning to 6 turns, which is pretty much the entirety of combat. I think, though, the best thing here is Booming Blade, though. It extends it to 2 turns, but that's not really the reason that we're using it. We're using it because we want to proc conditions based off of our gear. Now, what's great is Patch 8 actually made this perfect because previously, obviously, Booming Blade wasn't in the game, but previous to Patch 8, the Gloves of the Battle Mage's Power did not work. So whenever you hit with a spell or a cantrip that uses a weapon, you gain Arcane Acuity, and when you extend it, you actually are going to double your benefits of that. Another thing that I want to mention is that it actually applies to one particular spell that's not actually included here, Burning Hands. Oddly enough, if you cast it at level 3 or higher, it for some reason triggers Extended Spell on it. So I have the Hat of Fire Acuity. I now have 6 stacks of Arcane Acuity there. For some reason it works. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but yeah, it will proc your gear. For some reason, even sometimes more than it should. Now, what's even sillier is I love the Coruscation Ring, which can apply Radiating Orbs on the target for 2 turns. What's also silly is if you've got a Light Source and extend your Booming Blade, it's going to apply 4 stacks of Radiating Orbs onto the enemy. Pretty nuts. Here we go. We actually applied. So yeah, 4 stacks of Radiating Orbs for a single sorcery point and an attack, and that's going to proc the bonus action attacks for 2 turns and any other gear that you have. Yeah, Extended Spell is absolutely busted. Now, this was already good before Patch 8, but obviously the inclusion of items and Booming Blade makes this so much more powerful, but the really beauty belongs in the fact that you can apply it off so many different things. Booming Blade being a catalyst for so many melee builds to actually be able to apply things like you can apply Encrusted with Frost for multiple turns. It really depends on a lot of different gear. If it has a condition, it's likely going to double up the condition and give you double the effects. I could yap about this all day, but I think I made my point clear. It's definitely an S tier choice just because it can do so many different things and at such a low cost of only 1 sorcery point. Now, the next one we have is a fan favorite, Quickened Spell. I think this is what the sorcerer is most well known for. It does cost the most of 3 sorcery points, but it allows you to cast a bonus action spell. This is why the sorcerer is always regarded as a high damage caster compared to like the wizard, which is obviously more of a utility with their max amount of spells. And the reason the sorcerer doesn't get that many spells is because Quickened Spell just makes them so overpowered. This means on every turn until you run out of sorcery points, you can cast Fireball and then do bonus action Fireball, I guess until you run out of spell slots as well. It's pretty busted. Furthermore, this actually empowers a lot of combinations. Like if you want to take a single level of the Tempest Domain Cleric, that'll give you Create Water, which will double your lightning damage. So you can take a single level 1 spell, use a level 3 or 3 sorcery points, and then your Chain Lightning is going to double up on its damage. That is pretty crazy. And the Tempest Domain also gives you heavy armor proficiency. But the beauty of this is just the synergy and kind of the strategies that you can pull off with Quickened Spell, because normally you're only able to have 1 spell per turn. But with this, if you have like a multi-class where you got Command, which is extendable, I didn't even mention Extended Spell Command. That is something I actually hit it there. That is a whole other reason that Extended Spell is so good because, yeah, this is now for 2 turns and it takes the enemy completely out of combat without any concentration. But your combo is now going to be, if you got this, Extended Spell Command for 2 targets, Warlock or Paladin can give you the spell access, and then hitting them with another Quickened Spell. Like you could do Extended Spell on your Command or your Hypnotic Pattern, and then go with Quickened Spell and drop something like if you want to Globe Invulnerability or a Fireball or something that doesn't use crowd control or doesn't use your other meta magics. Yeah, you got lots of really great options. Quickened Spell, I don't feel like I need to talk about this one too much either. This one Extended Spell, it has a lot of secret interactions. Quickened Spell just does what it says at face value. It gives you a bonus action spell, which is really good when you can also do things like Booming Blade, although I probably wouldn't recommend doing that. Yeah, it just opens up so many different combinations in combat that I have to throw this up in the S tier. Like, I always tell people, if you're looking to use meta magic, some people avoid the sorcerer altogether because these are kind of confusing. It is a little confusing if you've never played through Baldur's Gate 3 before, but if you want to just do something that makes the sorcerer really powerful, only use Quicken Spell. You don't have to think when you're using it. It's 2 spells per turn, obviously pretty powerful. Hey there, you like stealth? Well, Subtle Spell's perfect for you then, because this lets us do a lot of things. Now, certain spells do have a stealth tag. For example, Darkness is a stealth spell. And other ones that would just make sense to be stealth spells, like Minor Illusion, because whenever you're sneaking around, Minor Illusion can be used to distract enemies. Minor Illusion is probably one of the most underutilized spells in the game, because you can use this to steal from people and be really sneaky, because, yeah, it's going to group everyone together, and this makes it easy for you to go ahead and drop a fireball. But normally when you cast a fireball, you're going to get spotted right away. This is not a thing you have to worry about when you're using this, because we're stealthing it up and want to drop a fireball. Boom, we got the subtle spell on us. We can go ahead and do that. And I'm not in combat right now, we're not rolling in combat, but if you were to do this, what you would have is it would roll a stealth check. And why this is so powerful is that normally when you use greater invisibility, the stealth checks actually increase every single time, and you can increase your luck of getting a stealth check success by using a ranger with Pass Without Trace, gives a +10 to stealth checks. There's also the Cat's Grace, which is clothing in the early game, which gives advantage on dex checks. Now, the thing that you want to do is you're going to use your subtle spell and stealth cast a spell. Sometimes you can get another one, sometimes you get another one, because it doesn't increase the difficulty challenge. Greater invisibility will give it +1 every single time, so if you're rolling like a 35, it's going to scale up and obviously make it a little bit more challenging every single time. This doesn't, and it only costs 1 sorcery point. However, you will run out of spells at a certain point, and it is obviously possible to fail the stealth check, but if you have a Pass Without Trace on your character, that can be really good. In fact, it's probably best utilized actually not whenever you're needing the silence. There are spells that you can cast when you're silenced, and getting out of the way of being silenced is not that hard. Like, I can probably count on like one finger how many times I've gotten into trouble with stealth or silence in the game. It's not a very difficult thing to deal with, and this isn't really the main reason you want it. If you want to enable a stealth-based caster, and especially with the Shadow Magic Sorcerer, you can use this. However, one thing to just keep in mind is that if you're going to cast Darkness, you don't have to really worry about that. So the Eyes of the Dark Darkness is really the spell that you really want to use with the Sorcerer. And typically combat's going to be over pretty quickly, but this is a really cool option and really opens up some different builds if you want to be more of a stealth caster. I think this is quite powerful, so yeah, this one is also going to go quite high. Unfortunately, this is a very hard tier list because most meta magics are just straight up good. Like, it's tough to choose between them, but Quickened Spell, obviously, and an Extended Spell being very powerful. Subtle Spell for the stealth-based casting. But one of the spells that you'd want to use it on is something like Darkness, and you already got the ability to do that, and the Shadow Magic's got a special Darkness too, so yeah, it's great. Now, I do want to quickly mention some meta magic mods, because there is actually a meta magic empowered spell that was meant to be in the game. It actually has its own icon here, and you may have noticed I do have it on my list here. Now, empowered spell gives you advantage on your attacks. There is, or spells, damage, which can greatly boost the amount of damage that they'll be dealing because you're going to reroll every single die. It boosts up damage quite a bit. There's a mod here by Siz H, and it has that there. There's also the Meta Magic Adept here, which allows you to, as a feat, learn 2 Meta Magics and get 2 sorcery points. This one's by Chiz Freak here. There's also the Meta Magic Extended Plus, which adds Detached Spell, Extended Spell, Maximize Spell, and Tripled Spell by Dark Charl. And then my favorites are their Meta Magic Extended, Twin Spell Unlimited, which lets you cast things on like Fireball or Cloud of Daggers, obviously quite overpowered, but fun. And this is the one that's my favorite, Meta Magic Extended. This mod by Dark Charl as well allows you to get not only just the empowered spell, which costs 1 sorcery point and can basically reroll those damage die. If you have Script Extender, you can use Transmuted Spell. Now, Transmuted Spell is pretty crazy. I'm not going to include it on this tier list, but I will include Empowered Spell, because Transmuted Spell would be like S+++ tier. It's busted. You can change the damage type of your elemental spells. So if you want to drop a fireball that does a different element because there's fire immunity or resistances, you got it. It costs 1 sorcery point for spell. Obviously, this would be a little bit overpowered, but it's cool. I think it's really fun. Unfortunately, it will not come to console. I feel like that's a little bit of a difficult thing because it does use a Script Extender. This mod also has that add-on that I mentioned previously as well. You could add on top of all this, and Sumer Dagnoth actually helped out with this mod by Dark Charl too. Really cool stuff. So yeah, I am including Empowered Spell here, and the item one that we have too that is in the base game with that mod. But next we got ourselves Careful Spell. So allies automatically succeed saving throws against spells that require them. And what's cool about this is it actually applies to you as well. The reason that this is good is because sometimes you just need a danger close, drop it down on your team, unfortunately. There's a lot of spells that are really good with a large area of effect. For example, Hypnotic Pattern. Although I would actually prefer the extended spell on this one versus protecting your team. Yeah, this one's tough because it will hit your team and it has such a large area of effect. But sometimes it's just better to get the double duration off on it. But yeah, it really just depends. It is pretty good, I won't deny that, but I feel like it's not going to make a huge difference compared to some of the other ones. You can just position your team a little bit differently or just strategize differently. I feel like this one's good, but not to the same extent as the others, so I will put this one probably somewhere. I might just throw it in the B tier. It is a good choice, but there's obviously some others that are more powerful. Now, Twin Spell. Twin Spell is an interesting one because there's so many cool combinations. Twin Spell, I would say probably the best way to use this is Twin Haste onto, let's say you got Lae'zel Fighter and you got Karlach Barbarian and you want to let them just go crazy. Twin Haste them. If you're not in honor mode, I wouldn't recommend doing that, but outside of honor mode, they'll get Lae'zel has her 3 attacks at level 11, she'll get 3 more attacks. Karlach has her 2 attacks, she'll get 2 more attacks. It's really good. hard to deny that Twin Spell is a powerful one because there's just so many useful ways to utilize this. Now, another cool way is using it on our very powerful Chain Lightning. This prior to patch 6 you could use on the normal Chain Lightning. It was busted, obviously was not meant to be that powerful because Chain Lightning is a 10d8 lightning damage. That's a lot of damage. Twinning it's crazy. However, if you have Marka Heshker, you can still do it. So yeah, Marka Heshker, the GOAT, one of the best staffs in the game. And if you still want to do the old cheese of the Twin Spell on Chain Lightning, you can go and Twin cast your Chain Lightning still. Yes, it's busted. I'm just going to warn you that right now, but you can do it in the game. It is a thing that's possible. It's kind of a glitchy experience, but yeah, it's strong and possible. But that's not all. You can also use this on command. Command's obviously best utilized with the extended spell to double that duration and upcasted too. But this can give you, if let's say you needed 2 targets for some reason, you don't have a level 2 spell slot, you can use this and it'll take 1 sorcery point. So that's something that's nice. Early game, I guess it'd be pretty useful. Haste is also the best usage, as I mentioned. You can also apply to Crown of Madness, which is a pretty powerful spell because it can make enemies start attacking each other and just get into a fight. Attach Insidious Laughter is not a bad target as well early game because that's 2 targets again, but probably best utilized on command. Yeah, Twin Spell is great. Best uses, Haste, obviously, and Chain Lightning. Pretty nuts. If you got a lot of casters on your team in honor mode, Twin Haste is actually a really good ability, but yeah, it's good. Because boom, now you got haste, your teammate has haste, you now have an extra action. And the beautiful thing about that is when you apply haste to yourself, you get an extra action. So that means you can just do another spell right afterwards. There's literally really no downside to twinning haste onto you and yourself other than if haste ends, you can become lethargic, which is scary. And if you have the Gaunter Mail Bow, unfortunately you can't use the twin haste on the Celestial Haste, which does not have that lethargic ability. I wish that would have been obviously really busted, but yeah, you do have to deal with the downsides. Just make sure you have all the gear possible to make sure you don't break your concentrations. And with that, I have to put Twin Spell up into the S tier. I think Quickened Spell is going to give you more bang for your buck in the average playthrough. Sometimes just squeaking out that extra spell in a turn is so bustedly strong, whereas Twin Spell, situational. It's really good, don't get me wrong, but you see my character and Shadowheart having a bit of a hangover there. That's the downside of Twin Spell that can happen if you break your concentration. You lose a turn for you and the target that got hit with it, which could end your honor mode run. So I guess just be mindful of that. I do think I have to leave in the S tier though, because if you want to cheese the twin Chain Lightning, which you can still do, yeah, it's pretty crazy. And next here we have Heightened Spell. So targets with spells that require a saving throw will have disadvantage on their first saving throw. This one's pretty good too. It just reads exactly as it says. It does have a high cost, but this is like, if you really, really need a spell to land, this is the way to do it. This would be most useful in something like Hold Monster, Hold Person, any of those spells that can really shift the momentum of a battle and you need to land. However, this is only the first saving throw, so if it's something like Otto's Irresistible Dance, which always nails its first saving throw, it's useless there. It's not going to help you out there, but it is good. I can't deny it. Heightened Spell is a pretty effective one. Not much else to say here. It just gives disadvantage on the saving throw, and you know that's pretty useful in a lot of different situations, kind of like Quickened Spell here. I'm just going to throw this one into the, I would probably say A tier. Yeah, it's a bit more situational than Careful Spell, which makes your allies succeed the saving throws, making an enemy fail their saving throw. When you cast a spell, you're likely going to know why you're intending to use it, and having that intention is much better than trying to be like reactive to it. All right, so for the secret meta magic that's in the game without mods, we need that Spell Seeking Glove. You can purchase this from Hellsick in Act 3. When you equip it, you get the Seeking Spell meta magic here, so you have to be a sorcerer actually to utilize this. When you make a spell attack roll, you can spend a sorcery point to gain advantage. This costs 1 sorcery point per spell slot level. Cantrips cost 1 spell slot. So yeah, this can allow you to get advantage. It's good. And an interesting thing is you can actually use this with something like Twin Spell. There's certain spells like Bone Chill, which we can actually apply this to and then twin cast them and get the advantage off, which is kind of funny. So there are some instances there, but yeah. It's weird, situational, and kind of mutually exclusive. It doesn't really apply the same way because you can use it alongside them. So this one's really hard to kind of adjust and kind of rank. This is useful if you really need to nail your Scorching Ray. I guess it also can apply to your Booming Blade as well, which is interesting because that's advantage on an attack roll. However, if you're using the Shadow Blade and you got a bit of darkness, that'll give you advantage as well. But hey, it's kind of interesting. This is a good one, but since it's not a true meta magic, it's hard to rank it. I'm just probably going to throw in the B tier, top of the B tier. It's good. It's really good. But is it worth using gloves for? Check out my glove tier list to kind of figure that one out. And last, we got Empowered Spell, which again, it's in the game's code, but not actually in the game. You do have to use a mod to get this, but boost damage by rolling each spell damage die twice and keeping the larger result. Costs 1 spell point per spell. Yeah, I don't need to explain. If this is good. This is really good. It's great on spells like Fireball or anything that's got a large area of effect because you're re-rolling the damage die and making sure that they hit harder. That's very good. Because you can get so many ways to stack up Arcane Acuity in this game. It's not really much of a deal missing like you're likely going to hit all your spells later on in the game or have a very low chance of missing them. That's where Empowered Spell is really crazy because you just flat out will deal more damage. In the same realm that Savage Attacker increases your damage, this will increase your damage that much more because we're rolling more damage dice. So yeah, this is not one that's in the game. I just want to give my thoughts on it. It would be like probably the best one in the game. That's maybe why Larian didn't include it in the game. I'm just going to put in the C tier because it's not in the game, and I wish it was. And for those that are going to skip ahead to this video, they'll see this and yeah, probably be upset. But this is my thoughts. Yeah, it's probably a true S tier. Like if this was legit, it'd look something like this. But Extended Spell in the game is really good. I would argue it's probably better than Quickened Spell now that it actually applies to our Booming Blade and all other things. Prior to it, I would say Quickened Spell is the better one, but this gets an edge because Booming Blade is actually so nuts, and it allows melee builds to actually apply melee-specific gear without having to cast a traditional spell. Yeah, it's nuts. Extended Spell is so good. And Quickened Spell is a very powerful one as well because obviously you guys know bonus action spell is powerful. Twin Spell for all the cheese and being able to twin chain lightning, that's pretty crazy in itself. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on the meta magics in Baldur's Gate 3. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed this video. Hope you had a great day, and we'll catch you in the next one.